Arguing with your enemy feels powerful in the moment. It feels strong. It feels like you're defending yourself. But the truth is far more brutal. The moment you argue, you step onto their battlefield. And on their battlefield, you don't control the terrain. You don't control the emotional climate. You don't control the audience. You are reacting. And reaction is submission in disguise. Most people believe arguments are about proving truth. They're not. They're about provoking emotion. Your enemy does not want to be right. They want you emotional. Because emotional people are predictable. Predictable people are controllable. And controllable people are easy to defeat. This is something Niccolò Machiavelli understood centuries ago. Niccolò Machiavelli didn't teach morality. He taught survival. He observed rulers, generals, and political rivals tearing each other apart. And he noticed something disturbing. The loudest man in the room rarely held the most power. The calmest one did. The man who didn't defend himself publicly. The one who let others talk while he calculated. The one who never explained more than necessary. Real power doesn't argue. It positions. And today you're going to learn 9 psychological strategies that allow you to defeat enemies mentally, without shouting, without defending, without lowering yourself to their level. Because the most dangerous opponent isn't the one who attacks. It's the one who doesn't react. The first principle is simple but ruthless. Silence is dominance. When someone attacks you verbally and you respond instantly, you validate their importance. You show them they can access your emotions. But when you remain silent, something unsettling happens. The pressure shifts. They begin to wonder, did it work? Did it not? Are you planning something? Silence creates psychological vacuum, and humans cannot tolerate vacuum. They fill it with imagination. They replay the interaction in their head. They begin to doubt themselves. Silence also protects your strategic flexibility. Words trap you in positions. Silence keeps options open. Once you argue, you are locked into defending a narrative. When you stay quiet, you remain fluid, unpredictable, hard to corner, and unpredictability creates fear. Not loud fear, subtle fear, the kind that makes people think twice before provoking you again. Silence is not weakness. It is controlled withholding. It says, you are not worth my energy. And nothing destabilizes insecure enemies more than feeling irrelevant. Second, control your emotions before you try to control the situation. Most people attempt to win externally while losing internally. Anger speeds up decisions. Pride demands validation. Ego wants to prove something. And every one of these emotions leaks information. The moment your enemy sees what triggers you, they own a remote control to your behavior. But when you regulate yourself, when insult meets stillness, you become unreadable. And unreadable people are dangerous, because no one knows how far they're willing to go. Emotional control is not suppression. It is discipline. It is choosing response instead of impulse. When someone tries to provoke you and you remain composed, you are doing more than being mature. You are forcing them into psychological imbalance. They expected fire. They received ice. That mismatch creates confusion. Confusion creates hesitation, and hesitation is advantage. Remember this carefully. The person who controls their emotions controls the pace. And the person who controls the pace controls the outcome. Third, let your enemies reveal themselves. You do not need to expose someone publicly. Give them time. Give them space. Most people destroy themselves when they feel safe enough to talk. When you argue, they become defensive and guarded. When you listen quietly, they expand. They explain too much. They justify unnecessarily. They contradict themselves. And every word becomes data. Data is leverage. Machiavelli understood something timeless. People reveal their weaknesses when they believe they are winning. So, let them think they are winning. Let them talk. Let them feel superior. Confidence makes people careless, and carelessness exposes strategy. When you stop trying to prove yourself and start observing instead, you collect psychological intelligence. You learn their insecurities, their priorities, their emotional triggers, and once you understand those, You don't need arguments. You need timing. Fourth, never correct them publicly. Public correction creates public enemies. When you embarrass someone in front of others, you don't just fix a mistake, you wound their identity. And wounded pride doesn't forget. It waits. It calculates revenge. Even if you are right, you lose strategically. Because now they are emotionally invested in opposing you. Quiet correction preserves hierarchy without creating resistance. It maintains dignity, theirs and yours. When you expose someone publicly, you might win the moment, but you lose long-term positioning. Powerful people do not humiliate. They adjust conditions behind the scenes. They protect appearances while shifting outcomes privately. This keeps alliances intact and prevents unnecessary wars. Remember, humiliation creates enemies. Discretion creates influence. Fifth, appear weaker than you are. This is one of the most dangerous psychological tactics ever written. The prince emphasizes perception over raw force. When others believe they have accurately measured you, they relax. When they relax, they make mistakes. If you display all your strength immediately, you invite resistance and coalitions. But if you understate your capacity, you encourage underestimation. Underestimation breeds complacency, and complacency opens doors. Let them think you are naive. Let them assume you are less capable. While they calculate against a weaker version of you, you prepare from the shadows. Surprise compresses reaction time. And in power dynamics, compressed reaction time equals dominance. Strength that announces itself becomes manageable. Strength that stays hidden becomes lethal. Sixth, win without letting them know they lost. This is advanced warfare of the mind. When someone feels defeated, they seek revenge. When they don't realize they've been outmaneuvered, they adjust quietly. That's the difference between humiliation and repositioning. True mental victory leaves no scar. It feels like circumstance, not conquest. If you block someone loudly, they push back. If you redirect quietly, they adapt. Invisible victories are the most stable victories because they don't trigger ego defense. They dissolve conflict instead of escalating it. And when opponents cannot identify how they lost influence, they begin doubting themselves instead of attacking you. That internal doubt weakens them more than any public defeat ever could. Seventh, use time as a weapon. Impulsive reactions satisfy ego but destroy leverage. When you respond instantly, you communicate urgency. Urgency signals dependency. Dependency signals weakness. But when you delay, calmly, pressure transfers. The one who needs resolution first is already compromised. Time also exposes contradictions. People who rush often contradict themselves. Let them. Wait. Observe patterns. Emotional intensity fades with time. Logic returns. And when logic returns, your position strengthens. Patience forces enemies to live with uncertainty, and uncertainty exhausts people faster than confrontation. The one comfortable with waiting controls the tempo, and the one who controls tempo controls the battlefield. Eighth and final principle, become the stable center others orbit. When you are emotionally steady, consistent, and unprovocable, people begin adjusting to you. They soften their tone. They measure their words. They anticipate your reaction carefully. Stability creates dependence. In chaotic environments, people gravitate toward what doesn't shake. When you become that anchor, you gain influence without demanding it. You don't dominate. You attract alignment, and alignment is stronger than force, because it is voluntary. When others depend on your calm, they hesitate to disrupt it. That hesitation becomes your shield. And once you reach this stage, arguments disappear entirely, because no one argues with someone they cannot destabilize. Most people think defeating enemies requires confrontation. It doesn't. It requires composure. It requires restraint. It requires discipline strong enough to deny ego the satisfaction of reaction. The man who cannot be provoked cannot be manipulated. The man who cannot be manipulated cannot be controlled. And the man who cannot be controlled cannot be defeated. If you've understood this, drop this in the comments. I do not react. I calculate. And remember, the moment you stop arguing is the moment you start winning.